There are 9 doors hidden inside the Great Pyramid. A Sumerian map drawn 1500 years before the pyramid was supposedly built names every single one of them. It tells you where each door sits, what was sealed behind it, and the exact order they were meant to be opened. 8 of those 9 doors are still closed. One of them isn't. And according to the man who spent the last decade of his life translating the map, the one that's already open was never supposed to be touched first. The map isn't a drawing of Egypt. That's the part that takes a while to settle in. It was carved in clay in southern Mesopotamia, more than 1,000 kilometers from Giza, by people who, as far as the textbooks are concerned, had no reason to know the inside of an Egyptian pyramid down to the chamber. And yet the map describes the interior layout with a precision that nobody can explain away as coincidence. The passages match, the angles match, the dead-end shafts that modern robots only found in the 1990s are on a tablet that was sitting in a drawer since before the First World War. So what were the doors for? Why does the map list them in a specific sequence? And what happens when you open them out of order, which is exactly what someone did? Let me take you back to where this thing came from. If you're the kind of person who wants to see the doors before everyone else does, subscribe. This channel is where the tablets nobody's supposed to read get read out loud, one at a time. The tablet was pulled out of the ground in 2003 during a German excavation at the ancient city of Shuruppak in what is now central Iraq. Shuruppak matters here because it's one of the cities the Sumerian king list names as a seat of rule before the Great Flood. It's also the city where the Sumerian version of the flood hero, the man we'd later half remember as Noah, was said to have lived. So the place itself is already steeped in before the flood material. The dig team logged the tablet, boxed it with about 400 others, and shipped the lot to Berlin. It received a catalog number, VAT 9819, and then nothing happened to it for almost half a century. The First World War came and went. The Second World War nearly destroyed the collection. The tablet survived in a basement, unread, because the man who'd been assigned to it died on the Eastern Front in 1916, and his notes were never recovered. For 35 years after that, VAT 9819 was effectively invisible. It had a number and a shelf and nothing else. The catalog card listed it as fragmentary, administrative, low priority. That label is worth sitting with because it tells you how easy it is for something to hide in plain sight inside a museum. There was no mystery around it, no rumor, no guarded vault. It was just boring on paper, and boring is the best disguise there is. It wasn't translated in any serious way until a linguist named Wilhelm Brandt got hold of it in 1951. Brandt published a 6-page paper describing the tablet as a temple maintenance record, which is the kind of dull label that makes other scholars stop reading. Grain lists, door hinges, repair orders. He missed almost everything, but he did note one strange detail in a footnote, and that footnote is the reason anyone went back to it. He wrote that the tablet repeatedly used a word he couldn't fully place, a word that meant something close to the sealed mouths, and that this word appeared exactly 9 times. 9 sealed mouths. The man who picked it up after Brandt was a Sumerian specialist named Anton Rice, working out of Leipzig. Rice spent 11 years on VAT 9819. He cross-checked its vocabulary against every other tablet in the Shuruppak group, against the technical texts from Nippur, against the astronomical records. And what he concluded, in a manuscript he never lived to publish, was that the sealed mouths were not doors in a Sumerian temple at all. They were doors in a structure the tablet calls the Mountain of the Two Horizons. That phrase, the Mountain of the Two Horizons, is the literal Egyptian name for the Great Pyramid of Giza, Akhet Khufu, the horizon of Khufu. Rees died in 2019. His daughter handed the manuscript to a former student who scanned it and put it on an academic file-sharing server in early 2021. It was online for 9 days before it came down. No takedown notice was ever posted, no explanation. But it was downloaded in those 9 days, and the people who downloaded it talked to each other, and that is how the contents are known at all. Here's what Rice says the map actually contains. It opens with a date. Not a king's reign, not a vague in the days of old. A real astronomical alignment, the heliacal rising of the star the Sumerians called the Arrow, which we call Sirius, at a position that Rice calculated to fall around 10,500 BCE. That date should stop you, because it's thousands of years before mainstream Egyptology says the pyramid was built. It's also the exact date that a researcher named Robert Bovall independently tied to the layout of the Giza Plateau, using the alignment of the 3 main pyramids with the Belt of Orion. 2 completely separate lines of evidence, a clay tablet in Berlin and the stones at Giza, pointing at the same impossible year. The Sumerians, the map says, did not build the pyramid. They inherited a description of it. They were copying from something older, what the tablet calls the records from before the water came, knowledge from before the flood. And what they copied was not a blueprint for construction. It was a key. A list of doors, in order, with instructions for what each one connects to, and a warning about the consequence of opening them wrong. Let me give you the doors.
The first door the map names sits at the original entrance, the one on the north face about 17 meters up. The tablet calls it the door that breathes. Rice read this as a reference to airflow, and here's where it gets uncomfortable, because the original entrance does sit above the entrance tourists use today, and the descending passage behind it does produce a measurable air current that Egyptologists have never fully explained. The map says this door was meant to be opened last, not first. It's a vent. You open a vent at the end to release pressure, not at the beginning. The second door is what the tablet calls the false throat. This matches the feature we now call the well shaft, a rough vertical passage connecting the descending and ascending corridors that has no obvious purpose, and that for centuries was assumed to be a robber's tunnel. The map says it isn't. It says the false throat was cut deliberately as a bypass so that whatever flowed through the pyramid could be rerouted around a blockage. A maintenance access. Exactly the kind of thing Brandt mistook the whole tablet for. The third and fourth doors are a pair. The tablet names them together, the 2 that face each other and do not meet. These are the 2 shafts leading out of the Queen's chamber, the narrow channels barely 20 centimeters wide that point at the north and south walls, but, until 1993, were not known to lead anywhere. For most of the 20th century, they were a footnote, too small to crawl into, written off as ventilation that didn't quite work, because they don't actually reach the outside of the pyramid. In 1993, a German robotics engineer named Rudolf Gantenbrink built a small tracked robot to go where people couldn't, and sent it up the southern shaft. 200 feet in, the robot's lamp lit up a slab of limestone fitted with 2 corroded copper handles. A door. A miniature door deep inside solid stone that no human hand could have placed after the pyramid was sealed. There was no reason for it to be there. A ventilation shaft does not end in a tiny sealed door with metal fittings. The map named that door more than 4,000 years before Gantenbrink's robot found it, and it named its twin in the northern shaft, which a later robot confirmed sits at almost the exact same distance in. I want to stop here for a second, because the rest of this gets significantly stranger, and there's a piece of it I can't fully lay out in a video. The complete door list, all 9,
with Rice's catalog references, the astronomical date math, and the translated warning passage written out next to the original Sumerian. I have put all of it into a written document. It's linked below, and the QR code is on your screen right now. Take a moment, grab it, and come back, because the next door is the one everything turns on. Gant and Brink applied for permission to drill through the slab and see what was behind it. The Egyptian Antiquities Authority denied the request and ended his access to the site. It took until 2002 for another team to be allowed to put a fiber optic camera through. Behind the first little door was a small empty space and then a second door. Behind the second door, they said, was rubble. The live broadcast cut away. The full unedited footage from that camera run has never been released to the public. The fifth door on the map is the one the tablet calls the King's Seal, and Rice matched it to the granite plugs blocking the ascending passage. 3 enormous blocks of red granite were lowered into place to wall off the upper pyramid. Egyptology says these were dropped after Khufu's burial to protect the tomb. The map says something different. It says the King's Seal was closed from the inside. That sentence makes no sense if the pyramid is a tomb, because a tomb is sealed from the outside by the people leaving. A seal closed from the inside means someone or something was meant to remain. The sixth door is the King's Chamber itself, which the tablet does not describe as a room. It describes it as the chamber that holds the note. Rice connected this to the chamber's acoustic behavior, and this is not fringe speculation. This is measurable. The King's Chamber, built from granite that is roughly 70% quartz crystal, resonates when you sound a low tone inside it. Quartz under pressure or vibration generates an electrical charge. The chamber's dimensions sustain a standing wave. The tablet treats this room not as a place to put a body, but as a component, something that does a job when the right frequency runs through it. And the frequency the chamber settles into when you sound it is not unique to Giza. The same low resonance has been measured inside megalithic chambers thousands of kilometers apart, in structures supposedly built by cultures that never met, that had no contact, that didn't share a language or a toolkit. The same note keeps turning up in the same kind of room. The Sumerian word the tablet uses for what fills the chamber is the same word it uses elsewhere for a sustained sung tone, the kind a priest would hold without breaking for as long as his breath allowed. Rice flagged that overlap and then, in the margin, wrote a single question that his student preserved in the scan. He wrote, "Who taught all of them the same note?" The seventh door is the one the muon scans found. In 2017, a team using cosmic ray imaging, a technique that is completely non-invasive and does not touch the stone, announced in the journal Nature that they would detect a large unknown void sitting directly above the Grand Gallery, about 30 meters long. Nobody has been inside it. Nobody knows what is in it. Within 6 months of the announcement, further scanning of the pyramid was restricted. The team's request to send a small camera into the void was refused. The official reason given was preservation. But muon imaging does not damage anything, so preservation cannot be the real reason. The map names this void. It calls it the upper mouth, and it places it exactly where the scan found it, above the gallery, 4,000 years before anyone had a machine that could see it. The eighth door is below everything. The subterranean chamber, the unfinished room carved into the bedrock under the pyramid that Egyptologists describe as abandoned mid-construction, is called the door to the water. Giza sits on top of an aquifer, with groundwater under the plateau and channels cut into the bedrock that could have directed it. The map describes the lowest door as the source, the point where water enters and the whole system begins. Water through narrow channels makes pressure. Pressure makes vibration. Vibration makes sound. And the chamber above turns sound into charge. The eighth door is the intake. Which brings us to the ninth. The ninth door is not inside the pyramid. According to the map, it lies underneath, reach through the subterranean chamber, down past the door to the water, into something the tablet calls the long room, or in some readings, the hall that was written. This is where Rice's translation collides with one of the oldest legends about Giza. For more than a century, there have been stories of a sealed chamber beneath the plateau containing the records of a lost civilization, the Hall of Records. Edgar Cayce predicted in the 1930s that it would be found and gave a date, 1998, which came and went with nothing. The pyramid texts at Saqqara mention hidden chambers. Legends attributed to Hermes Trismegistus speak of records sealed in stone so they would not be lost but could not be used. That exact phrase appears on the Shurupak tablet too. 9 doors are given in an order. The breathing vent last, the water intake first, the resonance chamber and the upper mouth in the middle, the records hall at the bottom of the sequence. Open them in that order, the tablet says, and the bond between heaven and earth holds. Open them wrong, and the warning passage is where Rice's manuscript gets damaged and hard to read. The surviving fragment translates to something like, "The mouth opened out of turn lets out what should stay and draws in what should not come." So which door is already open? The 8th. The door to the water. The subterranean chamber. Rice was specific about this. The subterranean chamber is the part of the lower pyramid that has been physically entered and disturbed in the modern era. Treasure hunters and early Egyptologists explored, dug into, and cut around it while looking for a burial they never found, leaving the bedrock exposed and the channels broken. According to the map's sequence, the water door is supposed to be the first one opened, as part of starting the whole system, with the other 8 doors handled in turn afterward. What actually happened is that the 8th door got opened blindly, centuries ago, by people who had no idea it was the first switch in a sequence. They opened the intake and then walked away, leaving every other door sealed. The map's warning is about exactly this situation. You open the intake without opening the vent. You start the draw without opening the release. In any system that moves pressure, that's the failure case. You create a one-way pull with nowhere for it to go. Now I want to be careful here, because it's very easy to slide from a clay tablet into a story about doom, and that's not what the source actually says. The tablet does not say the world ends. It says the structure was built to anchor the thread and hold the gate of heaven, and that turning it on at the wrong moment, or starting it and abandoning it half open, breaks the anchor instead of holding it. Reese thought the thread referred to a connection the builders believed the pyramid maintained between Earth and a specific point in the sky, the same crossing point the date at the top of the tablet marks. The pyramid wasn't a generator that just made power. It was a regulator, something that kept a connection stable. And a regulator that's been switched into its start position and then left there, with the rest of its controls locked, is not doing the job it was built to do. It's stuck. There's a detail in the Rice manuscript that I keep coming back to. He notes that the Sumerian king list records absurdly long reigns for the kings before the flood, tens of thousands of years each, and that after the flood, the reigns dropped to ordinary human lengths. The standard reading is that these are just mythological exaggerations. Rice read the door map differently. He thought the long reigns and the working pyramid were the same story told twice. While the system held the thread, the tablet says, quote, "The breath of long life," quote, extended over everything within reach of it. When the door sequence broke, that field collapsed, and lifespans fell to what they are now. You don't have to believe a word of that to notice that the tablet treats the shutdown and the shortening of human life as a single event with a single cause. And the survivors didn't try to fix it. They buried it. The map says the knowledge was, quote, scattered, quote, on purpose. The keys taken apart so that no one could open the doors in sequence again, because the people who lived through the failure decided that a sealed, broken system was safer than a working one in the wrong hands. That's why a Sumerian temple in Shuruppak ended up holding a description of the inside of an Egyptian pyramid. It wasn't local knowledge. It was a copy of a manual that was deliberately broken into pieces and spread out so far that no single piece would make sense on its own. Vets 9819 is one of those pieces, so here's where it all sits. A tablet that's 1,000 years older than the pyramid describes the pyramid's interior in detail no one in Mesopotamia should have had. It names 9 doors, modern tools, robots in the shafts, cameras through the granite, cosmic ray scanners reading voids through solid stone. Keep finding the doors exactly where the tablet put them, thousands of years after it was carved. The one door that's been physically opened is, by the map's own ordering, the wrong one to open alone. And every attempt to investigate the others, to drill the little door behind the copper handles, to put a camera in the upper void, to release the unedited footage from 2002 has been refused, restricted, or quietly buried. That's not a theory. That's a paper trail. The 7th door, the upper void above the Grand Gallery, is the one I'd watch. It's real, it's confirmed, it's in a peer-reviewed journal, and it's the one the authorities pulled the brakes on hardest and fastest. The map says it's, quote, the upper mouth, quote, the release point near the top of the sequence. If the problem with Giza is an intake that was opened while the release stayed sealed, then the 7th door is the one that would matter most, and it's the one we've been most firmly told we're not allowed to look inside. Maybe there's rubble behind it, the way there was rubble behind the little door in 2002. Maybe it's empty. Or maybe it's the release that was never opened, sitting closed above a system that's been pulling on one stuck door for the last 4,000 years, waiting for someone to finish a sequence that a frightened civilization tore apart on purpose so that it could never be finished at all. The pyramid is still standing. The doors are still there. 8 of them are still shut. And the 9th, the long room at the bottom, the hall that was written, the one the legends have been pointing at since before anyone could read the tablet that names it, has never been opened by anyone in recorded history. At least, not by anyone who came back out to tell us what was inside.